Hi, my name is Judy Carenti, and I'm here today to present my Performance Improvement Practicum. The organization that I have studied this term for this project is the San Gabriel Education Foundation. I'll tell you a little bit more about this foundation as we go through the slides, but it is an organization that I have been part of for many years as a board member, and I have seen it evolve and change and continue to do so over the last at least 10 years. The next slide is my table of contents. It goes through the description of the organization, the current situation and identification of problem, the interviews, the flowchart, surveys, analysis plans, survey results, and so forth. The San Gabriel Education Foundation was selected for performance improvement for a couple of reasons. First of all, the organization supports all the schools in San Gabriel by fundraising and making contributions to the district for specific programs. My children all attend the schools in San Gabriel. I have actually 2 in high school and 1 in middle school, and I have been part of this organization for many years. It is quite different than the PTAs, where they support specific school sites and different projects and programs. This foundation attempts to utilize the funds for all schools and to support all students in one way or another. For example, at the elementary school, they support an art and music program that all children are able to take part in. At the middle school, they do field trips for specific grade levels. So for all 7th grade students are able to attend a field trip. They extend the library hours at the middle and the high school, so students can stay after school, and there is a person who is funded by this foundation to provide library support. And they do also support the high school speech and debate program, as well as a high school college readiness program that all students are asked to utilize. It's called a Navigant system. CEF is governed by a volunteer board of directors, and it's comprised mostly of parents and a few community members. There are 2 paid staff members. One is an executive director who runs most of the programs, including the summer school program, which is one of the main sources of revenue. She also has a part-time administrative assistant as needed for the program. And the president of CES, Dr. Chastity Nunez, has authorized me to do this report and has given me a lot of support and guidance and answered all of my questions. So here is the current situation and the identification of the problem. In the corner, you can see a picture of CEF presenting their donation to the school board. It was for $100,000, and I'm in the picture somewhere in the back. Anyway, this organization does have a 30-year history and has strived to maintain a positive contribution to every K through 12 student. They also do community builders that are not fundraising specifically, but they do try to bring the community together and make the community aware of the needs of the school. Currently, the foundation is in a transition period. There have been many, many long-standing board members whose students graduated last year, and one of the main problems facing the organization is recruiting new board members. Currently, there's only a handful of board members, so it's a lot of work for just a few people. The other problem facing the district is that they need to identify program needs. Many of the programs that the foundation has been supporting were due to budget cuts occurring in the 2009, 10, 11 school years. Now that funding has increased somewhat in California, some of those programs that the foundation was able to support are now being supported by the school district itself. So symptoms of our problem include burnout by current board members by doing a lot of jobs with just a few number of people, lack of focus and direction, building capacity, and leadership. Here is my slide regarding the interview questions that were asked both of Dr. Nunez, the president, and Adela, who is the executive director. The questions were, what are the organizational goals, the strengths of the foundation, what are the problems and areas needing improvement, what are the symptoms, what challenges do you foresee in the next 5 years, what types of resources would benefit the foundation, and is the foundation willing to make changes to improve the overall performance, and is more support needed. So the interviews were conducted with the president and the executive director. Their responses were actually quite different, which was interesting to note. The director thought things were more positive, and the president felt that there were a lot more areas of growth needed for the organization. So specifically, the responses ranged from the organizational goals should be to increase the size of the board, identify specific needs of each school, and increase community awareness and knowledge of the organization. As I noted, there were different responses in the areas of strengths. One interviewee viewed strengths as diversity, longevity, dedication, support, and organization. And that was from our president. And the director viewed these strengths as focus and vision and values. Problems of participation and capacity, which can be closely aligned, were identified. A main area is identifying future leaders and board members. This has been a problem over the years, but due to the attrition, it has become kind of on the forefront. The other interview responses talk about lack of partnership with schools and community. A challenge was there needs to be a perhaps new focus of support due to the change in the funding formulas between the state and the school district. Both interviewees recognized the need for people as resources, and this is needed to sustain and grow the foundation. And both interviewees also agreed that the board of directors is open to new ideas. So that was the interview responses. And next is a flow chart of our current organization. And basically we have a board of directors that does 3 things. One is to plan community events. The second is to fundraise to provide support to the district programs. And the third is to recruit additional board members. So the flow chart is here. One of the main purposes of the organization is to fundraise and support the school district. So as you can see, that has kind of a longer charting out process, and there are several components that need to be looked into for that piece. One of them is to determine and fundraise and determine the amount available to donate. We need to seek input to find out what programs are needed, and then and that's from district and school partnerships. Finally, once we do know what programs are needed, we go ahead and discuss that and make sure the recommendations seem appropriate, and then we go ahead and present the district with funding. So that's the longest process here. The other process is to recruit the additional board members and see who we can get to add to our programs. I did a survey of the CEF board members. On my survey, I included both current and past board members. Interestingly, I received most of my responses from our past board members. Most of them had been active in the organization for a very long time and have very different perspectives. The new board members, some of us have been there for a long time, and there's others that are quite new. And unfortunately, I didn't get very many responses back from those new board members. But the questions are here. I did ask a lot of questions in trying to get a feel overall of the different aspects of the organization and how they're working. So if I go back to the previous slide, I talked about, I have some specific sections. One was, how well has the board done its job? There's questions regarding that. The next is, how well has the board conducted itself? The board's relationship with the executive director was also surveyed, and then the performance of individual board members. As I mentioned, the survey was sent out to current and past board members. There were 13 members from 2014 to 2016, and there's only 6 members in the current school year. We did have 2 new members that just joined very recently, and actually a third since I worked on this presentation, but I did not send them the survey since they did not have much background on how the organization runs. The survey was sent out by email, and I attached a personal note to each person explaining why I was doing the survey and if their input would be much appreciated to generate some valid responses. I received responses from 8 total people out of 19 that I sent it to. 3 were from current board members and 5 were from previous members. The survey responses were a Likert scale, as you can see from the slide, and the average scores were used for each question of the survey charts. After the surveys were distributed, I made a plan on how to move forward with this practicum. The first was to collect the survey results. Next, I analyzed the data that is applicable. I prepared charts and graphs, and then I utilized the input to determine the appropriate recommendations. So the next 4 slides will be my survey responses, and I'll just quickly go through those. As you can see, most people felt that the board was doing a good job. One of the areas that scored a little bit lower was the 3 to 5 year strategic plan. And that could be because of the attrition and the way the funding has changed in the last few years, that perhaps the organization needs to look at a different way of making the plan. The next section was how well has the board conducted itself. The responses for this section were very different. The areas with scores in the disagree category revolved around board recruitment, the fun had at meetings, the orientation, and plans for further development. So those are all in line with the identified problem. The positive points of this section of the survey revolved around the planning and the organization of the actual meetings. The next section is the board's relationship with the executive director. It appears that the board has a positive relationship with the director. Trust is an important part of the relationship, and that is the area that has the highest scores. The areas with the scores that could be improved are the evaluation and the differentiation between the board and the director. More information in that area might be needed. Right now, the director does make a lot of the decisions between board meetings and then brings her decisions to the board. So that might be an area where the board feels that they should have more actual input in how the decision is derived. And the last section of the survey is the performance of individual board members. Overall, the board functions cohesively as a group. Most members surveyed take their responsibilities seriously and work professionally. Creating a safe atmosphere where all can express their views is vital and seems to be accomplished in this setting, which is important in order to continue to make the tough decisions that are coming up. The survey notes and written responses. It's interesting to note that, as I mentioned, that most of the surveys were from the previous board members. I think that many of them still feel very connected to this organization. There were multiple comments made regarding planning for board development. Suggestions included board team building activities, retreats and training, and the need for infusion of new members with energy and vision for the future, social events needed for recruitment, and to find parents and community members that are not overcommitted with PTAs or other volunteer activities. Notes also included making sure new board members know the scope of the work involved, and perhaps some appreciation of the board members is needed. So I created some new process flow charts. The original one is here shown, and the second one details more specifically about some plans for the recruitment and attrition section of the responsibilities of the board members. So I also noted that perhaps some more input needed to be given to the organization from the school district in order to plan programs that are beneficial, that are needed, and that are useful to the students. Recommendations for improvement. I had 3 recommendations. They're sort of obvious in that they need to engage in various recruitment efforts. One of my specific points about this is to perhaps utilize social media and sites such as LinkedIn to generate interest in the organization. A lot of people in the community don't know what the organization is, what it does, and how it impacts the students. So I think utilizing alternate methods of engaging the community and perhaps potential volunteers is needed. Another area that I researched is some other nonprofit organization and the resources they use to generate interest from people for volunteering. And one of them is the National Council of Nonprofits. They have a lot of resources for organizations to use in order to create excitement and to perhaps generate some new volunteers. One of the problems, and I've discussed this, is recruiting the board members, and a lot of the people, such as myself, are involved in other organizations such as PTA and some other school activities. So sometimes our time gets thin when we are committed to more than one program or one organization. So finding new people who are not committed to some of these other organizations could be helpful and useful. As I mentioned as well, since I started working on this project, there have been 3 new board members, which is great. 2 of them participated in our last community event, which was last Friday, October 7th. And it was an event held at the middle school where it was a free program, and there was carnival games and a slide and food and raffles, so things like that to generate some excitement as well as some interest and knowledge as to what the organization does. So 2 of those new board members were very instrumental in putting that event on, and then the 3rd new board member is starting next week. Another recommendation would be to set expectations and provide an orientation for the new board members. Input received indicated that some people were not aware of the obligation that they were committing themselves to when joining this board. So being upfront and letting people know what is involved is going to be essential in order for them to participate fully. And then finally, my final recommendation will help with both problems of the purpose and planning of the organization as well as recruitment, is to plan an annual strategic planning retreat. This should take place prior to the start of the next year, and it could encompass succession planning as well as assignments and expectations for the upcoming year. And it could include, or should include, all board members and district representatives in order to allocate plan and resources to meet the needs of the schools and the organization. This idea was reported to me actually by several members on their surveys, and they thought it would be a good idea to implement for planning, for organization, and for coming together with both the organization and the school district for a comprehensive, cohesive plan for the following school year. So that's my presentation. These are my references that I used, and I welcome your comments and feedback. Thank you so much.